Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Erik Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health. How you doing today? Hope you're doing great wherever you are. And I really mean that, because it's the middle of summer and the sun is out and people are out, and it's just, even if it wasn't such just a great time of year weather-wise, it's just, there's no excuse to not be feeling great. There really isn't. Even if things aren't going well in your life, I mean, at some point you just have to, just the old American Hillary Clinton, pantsuit, Democrat, Republican, just pick yourself up by the bootstraps and dust yourself off, get back on that horse, and ride, baby, ride. And that's what we're doing today on the Holistic A-Hole podcast. That's what we do every day. We just ride, baby, ride. And today, I guess that kind of plays into the theme of what I want to talk about today, because I want to talk about this divide of quote-unquote health between the rich and the poor, and how people's socioeconomic, standing, placement, whatever you want to call it, how that plays into people's health, and is it really even a factor when it comes to health? How much money you make or have or don't make or don't have. Where do we stand on all this? I'm looking to break that down in today's podcast, and it's going to be a doozy. But before I get into all that, I first want to say what's up to everybody who is either returning or tuning in for the first time. If you are tuning in for the first time, just take a quick hot second, go into your podcast player, whatever you're listening to this on, whether it's a phone, an iPhone, an Android. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever it is, make sure you go in there and hit the subscribe button. That way you get this bad boy popping up in your feed every time it comes out, about twice a week right now, sometimes a little more. That way you don't miss a single episode of the Holistic A-Hole podcast. And soon, I'm working on this right now. If you have an Alexa or one of those Google Home things, one of those creepy machines that listens to you, and then you could just yell at it to get some information, like, Alexa, how much kale do I put in a smoothie to get the amount of vitamin A I want? Because that's a good question you would ask Alexa. Or, Alexa, how much is a new flat screen TV from Amazon? Now you can yell at Alexa and you go, Alexa, play the Holistic A-Hole podcast. And in theory, Alexa should be able to do that, because I will be there in the Amazon Alexa podcast store sooner than later. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, that'll happen. And if not, just keep doing it, man. Just do it every day. And Alexa's going to be like, oh, you meant the Holistic A-Hole podcast. Because that's how I imagine Alexa saying Holistic A-Hole. Holistic A-Hole. Holistic A-Holy. Holistic A-Hole. Sure thing. Right on up. So that's where you can find me. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're in the loop. That way you don't miss a single episode of this wonderful podcast, especially with some episodes I got coming up here soon. Got some more interviews coming up, and it's going to be, we're going to get into it. It's going to be so great. So the reason I want to have this discussion today about wealth inequality is because I came across an article here in The Economist. And The Economist is a very reputable magazine. It has been for a long time. Although I guess you could lump them in with the mainstream media. I find that of all the quote-unquote mainstream media publications, these guys tend, or at least used to tend, to be fairly reputable, fairly unbiased. But I mean, who even knows anymore, And this article really kind of, I'm not for it, against it. but I have some critiques and some thoughts. It was a thought-provoking article, I guess you could say. And the name of the article is "As Rich Children Slim Down, Poor Ones Are Getting Fatter." And basically what this article does is it's not even like a real in-depth article. It's just kind of one of those, I feel like, not clickbait, but it's kind of like this article where it's just looking to drum up more anger about how rich people have all the advantages and poor people are just left off in the gutter to rot. And, I used to be a bleeding heart liberal. I used to, look at rich people and bankers and just get mad because I was like, look at these assholes with all the money and they're not giving any money to me. And that's really not fair because I'm a person with a brain and a heart and eyeballs and a mouth and an asshole. And I deserve more of the money that the rich people are getting. And they're jerks. They only buy Ferraris and boats and, cheat on their wives and corrupt the financial markets and crash the market. And, there is a lot of truth to all that. But if there's one thing that I find liberals, and I'm not going to get into this liberal v conservative thing because there's plenty of, critiques I have of conservatives. But I find with a lot of these liberals, especially in 2018, there's just no room for nuance. There's no room for context. There's no room for specifics. And it's basically just lumped into this thing of like, rich versus poor. Rich people are assholes and poor people are just salt of the earth, great people. And that's not true. Because here's the thing about me personally is I don't hate rich people anymore. I think there's a lot of real rich scumbags, but I would like to be rich one day. I'd like to be a millionaire. I'd like to be a multimillionaire. I'd like to have 8 or 9 or 10 figures in my bank account. I'd like to travel the world and have boats and nice cars and houses and all these different places. Probably not houses. I don't want to buy fucking houses. It's a terrible investment. But I'd like to be able to have just pure financial freedom. And what I've decided, just from being a mature, rational thinking person, is that the only way for me to get that is for me to work my balls off, out hustle my competition, and do everything I can to make that money. I'm not going to get it from handouts. I'm not going to get it from tax redistributions of wealth. I'm only going to get it because I have an unflinching desire to succeed and deliver value to people. Hence this podcast, and as much as I'm saying I'd love to be rich, have you noticed this podcast is not monetized at all? I have no advertisers. I don't sell you guys anything. I'm just sitting here talking through stuff, getting through stuff. One day I will. One day I'll have, advertisers and a Patreon and I'll ask you guys for money. But for now, I'm more about getting the message out there and really exploring this idea of health, and when I listen to other podcasts and I hear them monetized, if I listen to Joe Rogan and he does, 7 minutes up top of advertisements, I don't go, this freaking asshole Joe Rogan just trying to make money off the poor people. I don't get mad that, even though I find it extremely corrupt, I don't get mad that CNN and MSNBC and every station on television runs commercials because that's how they pay their bills. This is just the way the world works. It's not even capitalism. It's just the most efficient way we have found that people can make money by helping other people, right? So I guess my point in this long rant is I don't hate rich people. I don't find, these preliminary faults with rich people that other people do. And I find that there's just so much in the media now trying to take down rich people. And, maybe it has something to do with religion, that we say, money breeds evil, and money and greed is the root of all evil. Greed definitely is. But just because you have money doesn't mean you're greedy. In fact, a lot of wealthy people spend more of their money in donations and charity and helping people and giving people things than they spend on anything else, Sometimes that's because, they have to, because they've made so much money that the only way they can keep from paying higher taxes is they got to make donations. Okay, the system's set up like that. And then some people just hide their money overseas. But I don't, again, feel the need to go in and regulate how much somebody makes versus how much somebody doesn't make. So, again, let's calm down on the talk of demonizing people because they have more money than you, and stop trying to get more money that doesn't belong to you. You're not going to get rich through, taxes. You're not going to get rich by taxing rich people more. If anything, taxing rich people less, yes, does create more jobs and opportunity and wealth, right? As much as we hate Amazon, Amazon has created a lot of opportunity for people to make a lot of money. Uber, has opened up a lot of jobs and ways for people to make money. Airbnb has opened up a lot of opportunity and money and opportunities for people to make money, right? So it's not just like every company is Walmart and they're paying people $6 an hour to be cashiers, okay? There's actual real opportunity that comes. Okay, I'm done with this. My point in this podcast, let's get back to it, is that this article is pretty much making the point, and it's an absolutely valid point, that rich kids are less obese and less unhealthy than poor people. And they go through, and it's they're talking about these neighborhoods, I believe in England. I couldn't tell you where they are. Camberwell Green is one of the neighborhoods they're talking about, where the magazine, The Economist, says that these are among the fattest kids in all of England. They're on the higher end of the obesity spectrum compared to, they directly compare this to wealthier neighborhoods there, I guess, around London, where the kids have a lower obesity rate, and they're kind of like trying to hash out why this is. They're saying things like, poor kids' parents are around more so they can cook healthier meals. Sure, that's great. They can keep the electricity on, so they have electricity to cook healthier meals, to keep their refrigerators on, so that they're, if they buy good food, it doesn't go bad, not to mention, like when you go to the store, it just so happens that garbage food costs a lot less than healthier food, which again, this is 100% true. Okay. But there's so much missing from this article. And that's why I'm upset with it, because, they're making the point that basically if you have less money, you're going to have fatter kids. And then we just kind of leave it at that. And what does that do? What does that do to help the conversation? It does nothing. It just makes people angry. It just makes people angrier at rich people, because there is more nuance to it other than just, poor kids are more obese than than rich kids. First of all, I don't know if you've been on YouTube in a while, but a lot of these like wealthier, I guess, quote unquote, wealthier, like middle class or upper middle class kids, they happen to have YouTube channels. And if you go on their YouTube channels, not like, unless you're a creeper or pedophile, please don't do that. But if you're just a normal person who just happens to be, okay enough going on, a YouTube channel of some 12, 13, 14-year-old kid, you'll see that they're also obese. There's a lot of fat fucking kids out there. All right, rich, poor. Sometimes they are in the wealthier neighborhoods because, let's face it, the poor kids' parents are out working, so they don't have time to cook their kids' food. Well, guess what the rich kids' parents are doing? They're also out working. Mom and dad are probably at work, or dad could be at work, working long hours. Mom might be there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that mom is cooking dinner. Mom might just be lazy. Mom might be going out and picking up Chinese food for the kid. Mom might be picking up pizza for the kid. Mom might have a boyfriend who she's going out to see because dad's been out so long, quote unquote, working, that she's like, fuck this asshole. I'm going to go get myself some dick. Hey, Roger, you got yourself a cool YouTube channel. You know how to whip yourself up a plate of spaghetti. Mommy will be home by midnight. And, it's just not as simple as some half-cooked survey that says, oh, rich kids are healthier than poor kids. What about all of the diseases of affluence that we see in a modern society, right? I'm talking like autoimmune diseases. I'm talking mental health. Just because these kids aren't tipping the scale doesn't mean they're not dealing with things like type 1 diabetes. They're not dealing with arthritis. They're not dealing with multiple sclerosis. They're not dealing with autism. They're not dealing with, all these mental and physical autoimmune diseases that do affect people that come from even more affluent areas of growing up, right? So just to say that, hey, rich kids are better off than poor kids, you're right. If a rich kid knew to go to the store and grab a shopping cart and walk around and pick the kale and pick the broccoli and pick the whole grains and pick grass-fed meat and grass-fed butter and, know the right proportions to cook everything, and they don't. They don't, okay? It's not the wealth gap. It's the unequal distribution of funds that go to different food companies and different food producers in both our country and places like Britain and the European Union, right? Because essentially what's happening is, here in America, at least, the reason you go to a store and, you look at like kale or you look at like fresh produce and it seems so expensive compared to like garbage meat or processed food, is because there's a thing here in the United States called the Farm Bill. And in that Farm Bill, we give farmers subsidies to basically grow cheap genetically modified grains and completely overproduce them. Why? Not to feed people, not to feed starving children in third world countries, but to feed animals who were trapped in cages on industrial agriculture, not farms, but I would call them concentration camps that are run not by farmers, but by basically prison guards, and who, raise these animals in the most stressful, unnatural conditions and then eventually slaughter them, right? So, so this is why garbage food specifically, is able to be so cheap. So it's not like, hey, only rich people can afford good quality food, and that's not fair because they're rich. No, how about this? We pay taxes to a government that artificially keeps this food lower. Oh, let's also not forget that all of these different food organizations, food watchdog organizations like the Food and Drug Administration, the USDA, the World Health Organization, all of these organizations are basically run by corporate interests, okay? You have people from Monsanto, for instance, going in and out of running the boards of the FDA, of the USDA, of these nutritional oversight committees. You have people from Kraft Foods. You have people from General Mills. You have people from Campbell's, right? You have the Meat and Dairy Council. You have the fucking egg board, right? All these corporate interests sit on the high decision-making boards of the food oversight committees. That's why the food business is so fucking corrupt, right? That's why they dish out so many subsidies to farmers to grow excessive amounts of corn and wheat and soy, not to give to us, but to basically make these genetically modified monsters, whether it's animals or whether it's the fucking, Cocoa Puffs or, chicken noodle Campbell's soup, or you name the item in the middle of the grocery store, and that price has been set artificially low so that more of it can go off the shelf, okay? Do you want to get into conspiracy theory talk? Why do they do that? Do they do it because the government is just so giving to its citizens? They want to just give them more and more high-processed sugar and sodium and hydrogenated oils and trans fats? Is that why they want to do it? Why would they want to do that? I don't know, maybe because it props up the entire corporate medical industry. Maybe it props up, all of the pharmaceutical sales that need to go on. Why do people have high blood pressure? I don't know, because they've been eating fucking garbage for 30 years that the USDA just so happens and the FDA just so happens to let be put on the shelf, right? Again, big broccoli, big kale, big tomato, big onion. They don't got the money to come in and just give to all these, corporate interests. There's nobody from the broccoli board sitting, on the FDA saying, hey, maybe we should have more nutrition in the diet. None of that shit is happening, right? So what is the result of all this? Well, it just so happens if you go to a bodega or a convenience store, which are like one of these like really rundown grocery stores, which are all that are in low-income neighborhoods. They don't have Whole Foods in low-income neighborhoods. And if they did, nobody could fucking afford it because that place is so ridiculously expensive. We've also propped up this whole idea of organic to where organic means almost nothing. It could mean there's no pesticides or no GMOs, or it could just mean that, the chickens that were raised, quote unquote, organically lived in the same conditions as industrial farmed chickens, but there's just a freaking window open and now they can call them organic, right? So you go to one of these stores and, they have fucking, cheap cereal, Cocoa Puffs, Trix, Lucky Charms for like $1.99 for a massive box of that shit. They have little Debbies and Ho-Hos and all these, what are those, like strudel things and all kinds of just processed high fructose corn syrup, sugary snacks, just all over the counters, all over the aisles. That's all you can buy. That's all you can afford, especially if you're somebody on the SNAP program, if you've got food stamps, which, I'm very torn on because they don't give a lot of money to people, as of this year, 2018 fiscal year. A household size of one person gets $1,300. Household size of two people gets $1,700. Household size of three gets $2,200. Household size of four gets $2,600. So if you're a family of four, you're getting under $700 a person for a month of food. It's not a lot of food. So you have to be super conservative with what you can buy. So what do? You go to the store and you get the cheapest thing there is, okay? This isn't the fault of rich people. This isn't the fault of poor people. This is the fault of an overreaching government bullshit bureaucracy making laws that on the facade look like they're actually helping people, but in reality, And keep in mind, too, that these dollars that you use to buy this garbage food, you're not just spending money on that. You're now spending money on all the medication you need to heal from all the diseases that you got from the garbage food that you could only afford. So this is why people go into such crushing debt, too, because they're losing money on the front end. They're losing money on the back end. So when someone like me comes along and says, hey, spend a little extra money on the healthy stuff. Spend a little extra money on the good quality, fatty, red meats. Spend a little extra money on the good quality vegetables. Spend a little extra money on a good water filtration system, because that way you won't go broke because of the because you need to rely on pharmaceuticals. You got high blood pressure, you're borderline diabetic, your blood sugar, or you have high blood pressure, or your cholesterol's out of control. Cholesterol, we don't even really know. Is that a thing? Is that or not? We can't even get a straight answer on that. Vegan, keto, it's all fucking crazy, right? This is the fault of the government. This is the fault of the overreaching arm of the government. And so you get a magazine run by the mainstream media, by these people from The Economist, per se, and they go, look, man, see what we're talking about? It's not fair that rich people are healthier than poor people. That ain't fair, man. And it's like, no, it ain't fair that you've supported for 30 to 40 years a neoliberal democratic government that just wants to make things harder and supports a program that gives barely enough money and highly encourages people to buy garbage food. And then, what they do is they put out these reports that say, well, we don't really know if poor people are unhealthier than rich people. We don't really know if the foods that are covered in the SNAP program are actually technically less healthy than non-SNAP program covered foods. It's not really our fault. It's not really our responsibility to look into it. We don't have the resources or the time to really measure what foods are healthy and not. Because you're the U.S. government and you don't have access to the smartest people from the best schools with all that tax money. I get it. You can't use that tax money to research the actual true benefits of good food versus not good food, because all that money is going to the U.S. military. It's going to government officials. It's going to Congress to fly first class to get their health insurance. That's what it's all going to. And this isn't a Donald Trump thing. I don't think he's helping the problem, but this has been a problem for freaking years. And it's just so corrupt on so many different levels, and so many people have their hands in the pie here that, again, to just simplify it and say that, oh, it's not fair that rich people get to be healthier than poor people. It's just not true at all. Not to mention there are, lower income people who do fight through the bullshit, who do find themselves good nutrition, and who do pull themselves out of debilitating circumstances. I know it's difficult. And look, there's plenty of rich people who just have too much money to spend and they are not healthier. So I guess my point in this whole podcast is that let's stop oversimplifying this whole rich versus poor thing. Rich people are better off than poor people, because it's just so much more nuance to it than a simple, stupid article by people like The Economist, who we're supposed to trust, who do actually have a reputable name, but yet fall for this kind of fake news, clickbaity bullshit that I fell for. They got a couple clicks off me, which means advertisers are going to give them a little bit more money. So I guess I'm contributing to the problem as well. So how am I going to sleep with myself? That is the key, my friends. What do we do now? So I'm curious to know what you think. How do you feel about this topic? Do you think I'm totally off base? Do you think I'm right? Do you agree? Do you find room in the conversation for more of the context? Would you like to see more of these mainstream media outlets actually really truly breaking down how wealth inequality affects the health of the people who receive these benefits? I would love to know what you think, man. Shoot me a tweet, shoot me an Instagram. Shoot me a Facebook message. Go on any of these social profiles. Look for The Holistic A-Hole. On Twitter and Instagram, it's at Holistic A-Hole. Facebook, The Holistic A-Hole page. And I'm working on building a group for The Holistic A-Hole, so keep your eye open for that. Also, go check out The Holistic A-Hole YouTube page. And if you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe. And if you enjoyed the episode, go on iTunes, leave a 5-star review and a nice little message. Share this with whoever you want. Take a screenshot screenshot of it in your player, post it on your Instagram, post it on your Instagram story, tag me at Holistic A-Hole. And like I said at the beginning, start asking Alexa to play the Holistic A-Hole podcast, because she's gonna give you a little present here sooner or later. So thanks again for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Go and listen to more that you haven't listened to, more Holistic A-Hole podcasts, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.